We extend a warm welcome to Word of Life Church tonight, Wednesday night, and to our commemoration of the International Memorial Day of the Holocaust and its victims. My name is Joachim Lundqvist, the pastor here, and we are the organizer of this evening. So we are honored and grateful to have so many guests with us tonight. I would like to welcome many guests. So we have representatives from the Jewish community and from the local government, Swedish parliament, and Swedish media, together with pastors and church leaders. I would like to extend a special welcome to all of you. And also, during the night, there will be some who will be listening to us the first time. Aaron, he is the chairman of the Jewish Assembly of Stockholm. Max Federman from the organization of Karen Kayamet. He is the board member of the Society of the Holocaust Survivors, and Ufkan from the United Israel Appeal. Let's give all of these a warm welcome. And we also we wished to have Mimi Levy, one of the survivors, but she has to cancel her engagement because of her health problems. But we are going to show a small video when she shares some of her experience, and so she can be with us in this way. So we shall start with this evening with listening to a song. It's performed by Paul Jonathan and Teresa Savalanian. It reminds us of the fact that even in the darkest of night, there is hope for the coming dawn. So a warm welcome to you all.
To more than I can be. to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
Kära vänner,
Dear friends, it was 75 years ago when the concentration camp Auschwitz was liberated and the world was placed eye with eye to this cruelty that we cannot imagine that human being was capable of. And 75 years later, we are still not able to absorb what has happened, how 6 million people, men, children, and women, systematically exterminated without having committed any crime apart from being Jewish. How much we want to run away from this reality, there's no defense and there's no explanation, because it did not happen in a remote corner where we could say that we were simply more barbaric or unilluminated. This actually did not take place in some primitive corner of the world, isolated from civilization and our values. It was not carried out by soulless robots capable of some kind of inhumane evil, but rather what took place outside of our door, right in the democratic and enlightened, civilized Europe. So what happened? This happened in our own time. So because 75 years was nothing in the perspective of history, and what happened, it was carried out by people just like you and me. And that's why we can never forget. That's why stories of the Holocaust must be told again and again from generation to generation. And first and foremost, as an expression for the sympathy to all those Jews who became victims, but also we do it as a constantly sounding alarm that we must never forget what could happen when we let ourselves infected by anti-Semitism and hatred, and what can happen when the world turned its eyes away and chose to value its own security before its moral value to help its fellow human being, and what can happen when Christianity, which should have taken care of his brothers, chose to choose the replacement theology, meaning that the time of the Jews is gone. And that's why it's for us a joy to see so many activities to commemorate the liberation of Auschwitz. But as I read the articles, but there are some elements which is still missing, some perspectives that has to be emphasized even more. Some stance has to be taken that should have been made sharper than our society or our representatives chose or dare to do. So I would like to take this occasion to emphasize a few of these aspects. First, distancing ourselves from the Holocaust. We have to, at the same time, distance ourselves from the anti-Semitism that made it possible. Auschwitz did not become a reality overnight. The construction of Auschwitz or this devilish idea was already started the first time when a commentary of anti-Semitic commentary was uncontradicted in Germany. And this continued when lies and prejudices against the Jews were allowed in the media without anyone protesting. And the concentration camp grew more and more powerful. Every time there's a small change of law, and slowly but surely the Jewish life and Jewish culture were being limited without any reaction from the world. And the power that constructed Auschwitz, and the power which is the drive engine of Holocaust, was anti-Semitism and also the acceptance thereof. And the tragic thing is that exactly the same acceptance of anti-Semitism and exactly the same ideological cancer or tumor that exterminated 6 million Jews is still growing in the world, in Europe and in our own Sweden. And this tumor is going to spread and it's going to kill as long as it's left alone. And that's why our decision tonight must be that we will never let this alone. No matter how it expresses itself, wherever it shows up, no matter how it masks itself, we are going to protest against it, act against it, and refuse to tolerate it on any of the societal plan. We cannot have any other goal than that in Sweden we have to have zero tolerance against anti-Semitism. And the second aspect that I unfortunately do not hear often enough in the media is that a distancing from the Holocaust must also be accompanied by a strong support for a Jewish life. Together with our commemoration evening, several years ago, I spoke with my friend Uwe Kahn, who is also here tonight. So in our conversation, he said, which I have already cited a few times throughout the years, but I would like to cite here again. It's very special to see, he said, how the Swedes, they are quick to express their support for the dead Jews, but they haven't got so much support for the living Jews. The Jews are left defenseless, and the Holocaust was made possible because nobody stood up for their right to their life, their culture, and faith. Instead, we suspected the Jewish identity and we limited bit for bit until, in the end, we sought to exterminate the Jews. This is truly unpleasant to see how the Jewish life and the Jewish identity again is under attack in Sweden. And seriously, it is being suggested in the parliament that we should prohibit circumcision of Jewish boys, and also the prohibition against the kosher food. So this would have made Sweden uninhabitable for the Jews who would like to live according to their tradition and culture and faith. And I asked myself, what in the whole world is this all about? Have we been stricken with complete historic amnesia? Do we not understand what kind of signal is this sending to the Jewish people in Sweden? Do we not remember what was the end result last time when the Jewish life was being limited and being relegated in Europe? Honestly, would it be not more slightly appropriate that instead of that for the politicians to address this violent anti-Semitic Islamism in Sweden? And when I'm speaking about this, would it be a little more appropriate to close those schools where this anti-Semitism were being taught and their teaching plan were in a collision course against our value, without at the same time suspecting the fully functioning Jewish and Christian schools, just because people are too cowardly to say what's wrong. If I can wish something from the Swedish politicians from the coming decade, is that a little less political correctness, a little more spying. So tonight, as we renew our commitment to never forget Holocaust, let us also add our decision to constantly watch and support and celebrate Jewish identity and Jewish culture and the Jewish life in Sweden. Here, I would like to recommend an article which was published with the title, "It's Our Responsibility to Protect Jewish Life," which emphasizes this perspective, which is written by the parliamentarian Mikael Oscarsson, who is here tonight, and also the Christian Democrats Party leader Ebba Busch. As I read it, she must have been to a good school when she was small. So the last perspective I would like to emphasize something that is very silent in the society about the Holocaust. That is, a strong distance from the Holocaust is not trustworthy without an express support for the country Israel. There's no doubt that if the Jewish people had their own country, then the Holocaust would never have taken place. And it's also obvious that without the country Israel, the Jewish people would never have been able to recover and to rise up in such a miraculous way that we witness now. After the Holocaust, the Holocaust has failed, thankfully, to exterminate them. So today, on the day of commemoration, as we say, never again, let us remember that the most important guarantee for this never again is actually the country Israel. And that's why, in one side, we take a distance from the Holocaust, and on the other hand, we demonize the country Israel, even more than how we condemn dictators. This is a tragic political do-nothing at the highest level. We are not saying that, please do not misunderstand me, that Israel is always doing the right thing. We are not saying that we are behind every one of their decisions. That's why, but I want to say, and I want to say this with clarity and timbre, that we always shall support the Jewish people's right to the country that's given by God, its home, its security and salvation, the only democracy in the Middle East, Eretz Israel, and its eternal and indivisible capital, Jerusalem. And in the end, the voice of Holocaust and the survivors, their voice is dying out. Not many are amongst us anymore. We have two possible scenarios. We can allow the Holocaust to disappear in the haze of oblivion, or we can together go from being listener to being recounter. Today, we are in need of people with courage to refuse, who can refuse to back away from anti-Semitism and to have spine enough to stand up for the Jewish life, both in Sweden and in Israel. And it's not enough for us to just have some commemoration. The memory must be strengthened. The memory must be emphasized. We appreciate the presence of politicians, lecturers, and representatives from the Jewish society and media and pastors we honor your precious work and your important position taking. But the position or the duty or the obligation is not only yours. So for every one of us in the church tonight, we need to remind ourselves how much difference a single person and his action can actually make. So as you today leave this place, please do not leave behind your engagement. To fight against modern anti-Semitism is going to require a lot more than us gathering once in a year. But when many raise their voice and when we fight against anti-Semitism, then we can together hinder this darkest night in Europe repeat itself. So today, I would like to finish tonight with the same words that I used in the latest 7 years, so that there shall be no doubt that the Jewish people and the country Israel is always going to find a faithful friend in our church, Livets Ord in Uppsala. Thank you. So we would like to all stand up and for a moment, in the beginning of this evening, let's take a minute of silence in order to honor the memory of the 6 million people, the Jews, who were murdered during Holocaust.
Stort tack. Varsågod.
Thank you. Please be seated. So you are going to listen to the music which is called Sunset Sunrise from Fiddler on the Roof, which is performed by Daniel Chanbai and Daniel Homata Bao. Let's give them an applause as they come up.
Stort tack för detta.
So thank you. So you shall listen to Max Federman from the organization Met, and we shall show a video clip of Mimi Levy, a victim, survivor from the Holocaust. So both Max and Carrie themselves, they are children to survivor. Let's give them an applause. Thank you so much. So I'm standing here today in front of you for one single reason. Both of my parents, they were survivors of the Holocaust, and today I would like to tell you about my mother's his story, and you can also listen to that in its entirety. So there are a podcast which is called Survivors. There are over 1,000 testimony and stories, about an hour long. So we would like to have this picture up. That's the picture of my mother's family. So my mother, Judith Schwarz, who was not married, she was born in Hungary, in a city which is called Miskolc. And then she grew up in a smaller city in Hungary, which is called Ego. So my parents, we see the family here in the picture. My parents, Mina Schnitzer, he was also unmarried, and Manu Schwarz. So, and here also my grandparents. So they got married in 1919. So the first child, Eleonora, which is born in 1920, and then came Yero in 1923, and my mother 1926. So it was a happy family. They lived a common, usual Jewish life. They were Orthodox, but not very religious. But they went regularly to the synagogue in Ego. My mother, she went to the Jewish school for 4 years, and then in the usual, and then went to a people's school. So 1943, and in Hungary, they joined the war on the side of Germany, and the Jewish laws were being decreed, which made it, and which caused the Jews to be expelled, especially the Jewish functionaries. So, for example, my grandparent, and this was a big stress because he was the provider of the whole family, and so he died, simply died. It was a catastrophe for the family, of course. It was 1943, and 1944. I can say that Yale, the young boy, 19 years old, he has to take over the provision for the family as the breadwinner, and it was a tough time. The first sign that something is in the offing, in Poland's concentration camp, this sign first came to Hungary. People ran away from those who were taken back to Hungary. They told a story about what did people do to the Jews in the Polish concentration camp, but nobody believed it. We just dismissed it. This can't be true. And this is also our usual behavior, because you always have a hope. You never believe in the worst. That was the first sign. And then things happened. Then followed several more signs. So Yale, he is providing for the family, and he was now being called in as a worker in the military. And many of the Jewish boys, they was to work for the Hungary in the east front line, because they have joined the war against the Soviet Union on the side of the Nazis. And these young Jewish boys, they were to work as, well, slaves at the front line. So there were only 3 women left at home: my grandmother, my mother, and her older sister, Leonora. So the next step was that people gathered all the Jews into a ghetto, and then you built these Jews where most Jews were living, and then and the non-Jews moved out. So in this way, so you create a ghetto in this way. Because my parents, they were living in an area which became the ghetto, so they didn't even need to move from their house. But several more families moved into the home. People were being crammed together. So it was like this during a few months until April 1944. It was then the deportation took place. People rounded up all the Jews in the square, in the ghetto, and they say that, okay, you can take 35 kilo, no, nothing more, 35 kilo. My mother was 17, and so they were standing in the square. They were rounded up, and my mother's teacher in the Jewish school, he was a big, heavy-set man. He has got a medal from the First World War. He was a true fighter and very respected and revered. It was the first time my mother saw anyone abused, because he was being abused on the square in front of everybody. And it was clear, it was the first shock that my mother experienced. The first night, they were in some kind of a hovel, and where they were told to leave behind everything of value. And if they did not want to do so, then they were threatened. And so they left everything that they had with them. But my mother, she was courageous. She has some kind of a pearl from Israel, which from what was to become from Israel. It was a David's star. So she stuffed it in her shoe. So this was with her through all the Auschwitz and all the other concentration camps. And she forgot that she had it. She did not refound it until she was in Malmö. And when she emptied her shoe, and when she was about to throw away the shoe, so this is still there.
Dagen efter,
the day after, all of those were loaded into cattle wagons. So you have heard, I'm sure, how these wagons, how they were being transported for several days with this in a terrible condition and terrible things. People died like flies until they came to one dark evening. They came to what it was Auschwitz, but well, she didn't know what was that. But when they came there, when the doors were opened, And the guide said, get out, raus, in German. And so they went out onto the platform, and those who cannot walk, they were shown to the left. They have to go to the village. The others who were younger and more stronger, they went to the right. It was the last time Eleonora and my mother Judith saw their mother, and then she was gone. So they continued and they cut all their hair, and they injected things, very unpleasant things. It really burns your stomach. It was extremely unpleasant, and they tattooed a number on the arm. Can we take the next picture? So that's my mother, 93 today. So as you can see, she's got this number tattooed, and this number is from Auschwitz, A9671, A for Auschwitz. So the day after their arrival, Eleonora and my mother, they were wondering, where's our mother? And so the other captives who were there for a longer time, they pointed to a chimney where there was smoke coming out. They said, "There, that's your mother." They could not understand what does that mean, but later they did understand. But at that moment, they could not understand. So you have to know that for the Hungarian Jews were the last Jews deported to Auschwitz in the whole of Europe, and the Russians or the Soviets or the Red Army were already in front of Hungary, but they were so determined to exterminate all of the Jews, even at that condition, when they knew that they were about to lose the war. They continued, meaning that the Nazis continued to send the Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz. So they were divided into groups. They were called blocks or barracks, and they slept in some kind of a bunker bed, just almost like IKEA shelves. So the sisters who were sick, they were in this medical hovel, and then they left their shoes and said to my mother, she said, "Take care of these shoes for me. These are important for me," said the sister. So my mother hid those shoes in her mattress, but of course, as she came back from work, those shoes were gone. Those were good shoes, good boots. But the sisters, they had some. They were lucky because they were in the kitchen, and so they were able to peel potatoes. This is called in German Shellküche. It's a good work compared to many others. Those who were they were inside the house, and then there were transportations of bread, and sometimes you are able to hide some food. So in this way, and you have better luck. So every morning, people were being called out, which is called Selapel. So every morning, they were counted they were standing in a row, and they were being counted, and it was very careful counting. People counted everyone in order to see that everybody was still there, besides those who have died during the day, and they were thrown out, and then there are those who hung themselves and they committed suicide. And then Yom Kippur, the day, the day of reconciliation, the greatest festivity that we Jews have, and also that was the New Year, the Jewish New Year. And several who were very religious, they hid those bread that they got, so that because they wanted to fast during the day of Yom Kippur. A German soldier saw that. She was outraged. She said that everybody was to get out and to kneel for hours outside the barrack, and then so this led to the fact that my mother and her sister, they could not stay in the kitchen, and they lost this opportunity to have a slightly better life, or slightly better situation. So in 1944, in autumn, the selection, they were being selected, so the 27th of January 1945, my mother was not in Auschwitz. She left Auschwitz in autumn 1944, and these selections were being made to make sure if there were anyone, there's anything wrong with. If there's anything wrong with the people, and then they will be exterminated. And those who cannot follow them, they were gassed to death. And they knew, and they screamed to those who were staying behind. Don't forget my name. Greet that person and tell the story to him. It was terrible to hear such cries. So little by little, so the camp was in confusion. People started to understand that the war was about to end. So in Braunschweig, they were in some kind of manger. At night, they were working on the streets after to get rid of the debris from the bombs. So my mother was able to find an onion in the basement, and showed it to her sister. And her sister said, "Okay, I'm gonna take care of this. I'm gonna take this." She had this with her, but when she came to the camp, and people found this onion, and she was, my aunt was abused. That several days later, she succumbed to this abuse and died. She died because of an onion. It's just incomprehensible. She was 90. She would be 94. My mother was despaired. She could not understand how could things go. She only knew that she came to a place called Ravensbrück. And then the Swedish white bus went to that place, and there was also a train going from that place. So they understood that you are now being liberated and you will go to Sweden or Sweden. My mother had no idea what's Sweden. So she just joined along. She was only 31 kilo.
Hon kom till Malmö.
So she came to Malmö. And the first impression was that, first of all, she was in a very bad condition. And they have to delouse her, and then she has to recover. And slowly, and she recovered. Among those first impressions, so she later went to Lund, and then the first impression she had was its students. It was about the 1st of May, students with white caps, men, women, all wonderful. What a world! Very much excited, and then she came to a camp in Småland, and in order to fully recover. But she had her own thoughts. She thought, what a shock that when it was gas that came instead of water, how much time does it take for her mother and grandmother before they died? So I would like to finish with the following phrase in Hebrew. Am Israel Chai. Say this. Am Israel Chai. Am Israel Chai. It means that Israel's people shall live.
Vi ska nu se.
So let's now now we shall see a testimony from Francesca Mimi, and this is recorded and the TV director that recorded this is with us tonight, and I can recommend that you should look at TV7. And they have a lot of good reporting from Israel, and especially this series, which is called The Miracle of the Century. So it was indescribable, it was terrible. We were about 170 people in a wagon. We had no clothing, no food. We had no food with us. It was terrible. We didn't know where we were. We were going. There was no wind after several days. As we did everything in that wagon, it was terrible condition. So that night we came to Auschwitz. We didn't know where we were. We only saw all those SS men with their dark boots and with their lamp. And there were a few who were there, who were they had their prisoners' clothes. They helped us because the wagons were very high, so they helped us down. And they say that you are old in Germans. They told us. So then we came. Then we said to the SS. The sick and old go this direction, the others go that direction. I had one sister who was 2 years younger, who was not feeling well. She felt like she wants to be with me. She said, "Okay, I'm going to go with you." So the 3 sisters and my parents, they went to one direction. And we have never seen our parents again. We cried, we screamed, we say that we're gonna they just say, oh, they're going to work in a different camp. So we went to the camp, and we were in a place where we have to take off all of our clothes, and we were shaven, and we were completely naked. And before the shower, and the shower that we had, it was a true shower, but the others who took their shower, they were gassed. So we were naked, we did not recognize each other. And then we went into Auschwitz. We didn't know what was going on. We only know that those barracks, well, there was only barracks. We had those soup twice a day. And then the people came to check who is to live, who is to die. And so I had a sister who was 2 years older. She was sick. So we have to sort of make her to look more fresher. So, but then, and then she was taken away and died. So there was this SS woman that she was the worst ever. She went through the camp. So instead of drinking this soup, I was standing there naked. She came to me and slapped me in the face. And the next day she saw me and called me and she said, "So was that you that I slapped yesterday?" I said, she said, "Say this in German." I said, "Yes, yeah." And she said, "You have to come to our little hovel in the afternoon." I was terrified. So when I went there, she put a bandage, a black bandage, on my arm, and so she gave me some bread, and she said, "You can come tomorrow again." And that was something that, well, you know, to have bread, that saved me. But when I was to tell the others that, my job is to get everybody to stand in a row. So I took some. We had no hair, so I made a turban. So I got a turban, but no one else got it. So one day, so I told this little girl, "Take away the turban," and she almost stepped on her and trampled her to death. We wanted to be bombed because the condition. And then after that, we took the train. We went, and in those wagons, we went to a factory. And there were 300 girls. There was 3 blocks. So after Auschwitz, it was like, compared to Auschwitz, it was like a paradise. It was icy cold, but we had shower. So every morning we worked. It was a factory. We understand. Now we understood that why did they look at our eyes and hands. And we were there to make a lamp. We were doing that 8 eyes. That's why they needed people with very fine feeling. So the next morning, this SS woman, there should be one in front of us and one behind us. But they didn't see that there was a small girl. She came into the queue. And she came to me and she asked me, "What's your name?" I said, "Mimi." She said, "Okay, my mother is there behind the curtain." She was asking, "What can we do?" And I said, she was about 10 years old. I said, my name is Mimi. And I said, "I want to have some potato from your mother." So next day, she came in the evening. She had a potato, but we cannot take this into the camp because they checked us. So we threw it before we came to the entry. And then we threw it inside the camp, and then we took the potato as we entered. So we are very hungry. So when the Russians started to bomb, and the Americans came, and they are going to terminate this camp, and then this SS woman came to me and said, "Where do you know of this family?" I said, "No idea. I don't know even what this family." He said, "Oh, fear not. The family wants to save you. We are going to let you go tonight. You can take your sister with you. So go out 12 o'clock." So I was so terrified. I didn't know what to do. So I asked those elderly who have been there, who were nurses there. They said, "Oh, you have to go. Tomorrow you'll be home." But somehow I felt like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't dare. What happened to you is going to happen to me. So I stayed with the group. We walked because the bombs were falling, so we marched together with the Germans. And we marched. It was snow and it was cold. Many could not make it. They were sick, and many died along the way. It was a terrible march. But they didn't know what they were to do with us. So the day after, one day we worked in one factory, the second day another one. I don't know how many places we have been to. I don't remember. But one day they put us in a wagon again. It took us 4 days without any food. They took us to a forest. Now, okay, we thought they are going to shoot us. But one day later, an SS man came with a bicycle. So they didn't know what they were to do with us. And suddenly, when you were in the train, and we understand that something was happening, and we know that the end is coming. And then someone came to me and said, he gave me a bit of bread. I was very small. I was 16. I looked like I was only 10. He gave me some bread. So one day, we had no idea where we are going. I know that you have said that if Israel had existed, then it would have made all the difference in the world. This is my conviction, but too bad we didn't have it. So you are thankful that there is Israel today, and that's the best that has ever happened. Dear church, so I would like to thank the leadership of the church, Pastor Joachim and Maria Lundqvist, and Karin Tu, Kalle Lilia, and all of the other organizers and pastors, and for your invitation to this commemorative night of the Holocaust. FFO, the union of the survivors of Holocaust, and the chairman told me he cannot come, too bad, because he was on a work trip, but he sent his greetings. But I was the former chairman of this organization, FFO. So this union was started in 1989 by a group of survivors of Holocaust, as a response to the wave of anti-Semitism and also hatred towards Israel, as well as the denial of the Holocaust that swept Sweden along. And Robert Furison, Ahmed Rami, and others. So they denied that Holocaust had ever taken place. If it had taken place, it was not as bad as people said it did. It was a few who survived the Holocaust and survivors of the Second World War. And through those white buses and boats, they ended up in Sweden. My mother, my aunt, my mother's, my wife's mother, but they all died. Now, those who built their life in this blessed country, this country received all the wreckage of a human being, and they rescued these people back to life. But they now say that the Holocaust has never taken place. I was there. Why do you say that it never took place? And this group, they joined force. So what are you talking about? This never took place? So through visiting schools and unions and churches, and this is our goal as FFO, to enlighten people of what had truly happened and the fact that this terrible thing could happen again if we do not ring the alarm whenever we hear the echo from the 30th, as we do now. Maybe you have been here on earlier occasions. Maybe you have heard our lecturer, Lilia Frankel, Tobias Ravet, Max Safi, Hadi Fried, Mimi, as we have heard. But with age, these people, they have not many years to live, and they cannot continue their testimony 75 years later after the end of the war. And they're about 85 to 95 years old, and it's a miracle that they are able to reach such age, considering what they have gone through. So about 30 years ago, so these survivors, they meet yearly, about 20,000. So about preschoolers, they listen to their tragic stories. And we make teaching material, we have films, and our lecturers, we are building new memorials. We're building a new memorial, a monument in Stockholm. And right now, we are about to we are helping we are building a Holocaust museum in Sweden. We have, unfortunately, we don't have the required knowledge, and it's up to us, the others, the third generations of the survivors, to carry their testimony further, so that this cannot happen again, not against us or not against anyone else. And this is only a very short introduction of what FFO is doing. If you are interested, you can come to our website, FFO. Something I didn't hear. And at our burial place, our graveyard, on the death day of our beloved ones. So we speak about the Yom Kippur. You recite a prayer which means God the merciful. And then we commemorate our the deceased ones. And after the Second World War, for a commemoration like this tonight, and then our prayer has a different texture. And this prayer, I have recited this prayer at the mass graves in Treblinka, in Auschwitz, in the gas chamber in Majdanek, and we also visited those factories in Poland. And this prayer will be now recited first in Hebrew and then translated. May I pray all of you to rise up.
אל מלא רחמים, שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה, על כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים, קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הרקיע מצירים, את משמות אחינו בני ישראל, הקדושים והטהורים, שנפלו בידי הרוצחים, ונשפך דמם. באושוויץ, מיידנק, טרבלינקה, מאוטהאוזן, ברגן בלזן, ובשאר מחנות השמד באירופה. שנהגרו, שנשחטו ושנשרפו, ושנטבעו ושנחנקו על קידוש השם. בעבור שכל הקהל הקדוש הזה מתעללים בעד הזכרת נשמותם, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתם, לכן בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפך לעולמים. וצרור בצור החיים את נשמותם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו על משכבותם בשלום, ונאמר אמן. Gud full av barmhärtighet,
God full of mercy, who give a complete repose under the wings of your mercy to those the holy ones, for our brothers and sisters and the souls of the Jewish people, those who have gone to its world, and the pure and the holy, those who became victim to the darkness. Their blood was spilled in Auschwitz, Majdanek, Treblinka, and Mauthausen and Bergen-Belsen, and the other concentration camps in Europe. So those who were exterminated, burned, slaughtered, buried alive with extreme barbarity. May the merciful take them under the protection of your wings, and may their soul make a covenant, and in paradise may they find a repose, and may them rest in may they rest in peace. And we say amen. Please be seated.
Det där fantastiska stycket hette Pascha.
This beautiful piece, which is called Jewish Prayer, are very fitting for this occasion. Thank you for sharing this music. It's been a pleasure for me to introduce Aaron Pastandik, chairman of the Jewish Assembly, and where the world leaders are now gathering in Israel to commemorate the liberation of Auschwitz and also to honor the victims of the Holocaust. We are so honored that Aaron that he is here for the first time. So let's welcome Aaron with a warm applause. Dear friends, thank you so much, Joachim, all those who have come and those who have organized for this evening. It truly feels really elegant, and also a great pleasure for me to be with you as the chairman for the Jewish Assembly in Stockholm, and also the grandchild to a survivor of Holocaust. It feels really great to be here when we honor the victims. So, as many of you mentioned, this is a very important year. 75 years ago, 1945, the concentration camp was liberated in Auschwitz. It was liberated by the Russian Red Army, and in the coming month, several of the other concentration camps were being liberated by the Allied force. About 20 years ago, 2000, leaders from the whole world, they were invited by Yoram Passion, and he was terrified, Yoram Passion, of the low amount of knowledge of the Holocaust, and he would like to get hold of this issue so that the memory of this greatest crime should not become forgotten. So the leaders called the Stockholm Declaration, and they took upon themselves to spread the knowledge and to spread this, and also to honor the memory of those victims. So for 20 years, there were about thousands of survivors, and many of them devoted their life in order to witness against the terror that they went through. And today, the situation is different. There are fewer and fewer who could testify about their own experience. Now, the world's leaders are gathering again, last week in Jerusalem and this week in Auschwitz, in order to confirm their duty that they should never forget this great, the worst ever crime that was ever perpetrated on earth, where 6 million Jews were terminated. And so the memory of what had happened, this is what was very central to the Judaism. And when after, so through every year gathering and their children and grandchildren at the Passover table, we make sure that the things that struck our people should never be repeated by perpetuating what happened in the history. So they did not talk about their exodus from Egypt. So in Torah it's written so that every man is obliged to that, as if she has to treat it as if it was he himself that went through the Exodus, so that we can very easily identify ourselves with other people. We can feel their pain and their hope. So I'm thinking about those survivors who are in their advanced age. They travel around to tell people what does that mean. So my grandfather, he went through 9 different concentration camps. Her siblings were murdered. He wrote down his memory, and in the end of his book, he wrote, my grandparent, that is, the knowledge of what happened cannot die with us. So the awareness of what happened then, it's not just about the statistics or any historical description. The coming generations, they have to know what does it feel like for a single person to go through that terrible period. And last year, there's a new book about my grandfather's experience in the concentration camp. We can never let the Holocaust to be reduced to statistics and just facts. It's the worst that has ever happened. The children of the survivors, they heard this, they heard the story from the survivors. But what's going to happen in the next generation? In the same way, we Jews, during Pesach, we try to identify ourselves with those who 3,000 years ago left the slavery of Egypt. We have to, with all of our power, to identify ourselves with those who were exposed to the worst crime of humanity. For the Holocaust, so the prize winner, Nobel Prize winner, he said, you shall not be a passive spectator. You have to raise your voice. And for those who cannot do this themselves, you have to stand on the side of the victim. In times of darkness, we need his words more than ever. So we Jews, we know all too well the hatred and the menace that what can that lead to. Just like the canary in a mine, anti-Semitism is often the first sign that something is not right in the society. And to fight against anti-Semitism is something that's our common duty. So let us remember those victims every day today by making sure that what happened once should never happen ever again. Thank you so much.
Who can say for certain? Maybe you're still here. I feel you all around me. Your memory is so clear. Deep in the stillness, I can hear you speak. You're still an inspiration. Can it be that you are mine forever, love, and you're watching over me from above? Fly me out to where you are beyond the distant sun. I wish upon tonight to see you smile, if only for a while to know you're there. Our breath away is not far to where you are. Are you gently sleeping here inside my dream? And isn't faith believing all power can't be seen? As my heart holds you just one beat away, I cherish all you gave me every day. 'Cause you are mine forever, love, watching me
We shall take up tonight's collection, and I would like to welcome Max Federman, the manager of the Tieren Karim, and Uf Khan, the general secretary of Karen Hayasom. Give them a round of applause.
Shalom, Chaverim.
Shalom, dear friends. Israel is the only guarantee in order that the Holocaust will never happen again. So Israel, we have to continue to build this country. Israel is smaller than Småland, where there are 9 million people living in an area smaller than Småland. And more than that, about 60% of the country are deserts, where there are only 88% of the entire 9 million people. So you understand how crowded it is in Jerusalem. We have to build the country so that it can take more and more inhabitants. So Karen Karim, which is a fund, we are working so that new inhabitants should be able to settle in Negev desert, and 500,000 should be able to settle in Galilee. We are working with infrastructure. We are working with educating people, so that young people. We call this the periphery Israel, which is meaning those which are not connected to the large cities, Jerusalem, Haifa, Tel Aviv. That's the periphery Israel. We have to bring these up to the same level, just like the big cities. So this fund is celebrating 110 years. It was 110 years ago. It was established in Stockholm. So our celebrations project is the Raoul Wallenberg Park, which is to honor one of the biggest Swedish hero, Raoul Wallenberg. We're going to build this park close to Jerusalem, and 20 minutes from Jerusalem, 40 minutes from Tel Aviv. It will be easy to go there. We are most known for planting trees. We have planted 250 million trees since our existence, 1901. But we do a lot more. We build societies, we build infrastructures, we work with young people, we do research, we set up the so-called Karen Karim house around the developing cities in order to raise the education level. And we are part of building the future of Israel. I would like that you support us. Thank you. And it's so great. It's better like this, so that I can move around a bit. My name is Uf Khan, the General Secretary of United Israel. So it's a foundation. So we are celebrating 100 years. We were founded since the Balfour Declaration. It was a starting point of the recognition that there was to be a Jewish homeland in Israel. So our work has been always Aliyah, which is to rise up, to move to Israel. We have a lot of social projects for young people, for the elderly. So this time, we used to focus on the poor and elderly. And it's true, unfortunately, that a lot of old survivors, they are very poor. We speak about the elderly. They've come to Israel from the former Soviet Union. They came to Soviet, they have nothing. But when they are really old and then need care, and also for their mental health as well as physical health, it's difficult for them because they had nothing. What we are doing is to help to build secure and low rent and lodging for them, because they need help with their medicine, their rent, and food. And these are the concrete things that we want to do. And this is what we're going to take up offering for. And I would like to make a small announcement about a Israel trip, and because it would be nice to see those projects, to meet those who have just immigrated. And also we want to focus on the business and also the finance, innovation, for research. We have a lot of guest speakers. So I shall lead this. We shall lead this together with the Raoul of Raoul. And you can register for this. You can find us on the internet. And we shall see a short film, 1 minute long. It shows you what a part of those old people that we help. Thank you.
לפני המיגור הייתי לבד. ממש לבד.
Амигур.
Здесь, в Амигуре.
О нас беспокоятся.
שיוכלו להזדקן בכבוד, ותודה על תמיכתכם.
Я желаю, чтобы у каждого человека был такой дом.
У меня есть дом. Большое спасибо.
Tack Max och tack Ulf för...
Thank you, Max and Ulf, for your organizations that you represent. It's such great work you do in order to build the country Israel. So we who are gathered here, we have the opportunity to stand together with these organizations and their work in order to develop and to build the country and to support immigration and to support the elderly in their social projects that they represent. So let us show our generosity. Let us show that we want to give into this. So the collection will be shared between these two organizations and their wonderful work. So you can give in different ways. We take up cash offering. You can put this in the box that will be passed around. You can also give through your smartphone, from your mobile, through Swish, or if you have a Norwegian telephone number, you can use VIPs. You can follow the instruction behind me. And if you are with us through the web, you are following us through the internet, you can also be a part and give. And you can click on give a gift, and you can follow the instruction on the screen. Then you can be a part to support these organizations as well as our Israel work. So and also our engagement in Israel and the Jewish people. So thank you for your gift, and God bless you. With that piece of music, which is called Perseus, and which is also performed by Ton and Teresa. So we're coming to the last element of this evening, and before that, I would like to take the occasion and express my gratitude to all those involved tonight, and the musicians or speakers. Let's give tonight everybody who is involved tonight an applause. Thank you for your work. So an extra thank you to Karin Tu, which is our project leader for tonight. Such a wonderful work. Thank you, Karin. So thank you all who has been here and or who have followed us through TV, or we know that Liebe zu Yuan Shopping, they are following us online. So through your presence, we have honored those 6 million whose right to life in the future were deprived, and you have shown your solidarity with Israel and the Jewish people. So we cannot let this evening finish without having our hearts going out to Israel, the God of Israel and the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, who has left the people of Israel out of darkness. And we know that he who has started a good work, he shall fulfill it. So after this evening, and you are welcome to stay and to share fellowship. You can have fika in our newly built orangery. And maybe you notice that we are renovating our entire entrance. It's going to be nice, but right now it's a mess. But I would like to say that I encourage you or to recommend that just take a stroll in our bookshop. It's on the right side of the orangery, and we have a nice. We are on sale, and the books of Israel are on sale, so you can read about this. You can become a supporter of the Jewish people in Israel to do your part so that the Holocaust can never happen again. So we finished this evening by listening to the Ansagas High School. They are going to sing the choirs led. So, but they are going to sing Hatikva together with the Swedish national song. But this is a very interesting combination. Actually, the melody of our national song was borrowed by the composer, and which he borrowed this element of which later became the Israeli national song. So we would like to emphasize the connection and the collaboration between our country and Israel. So again, thank you for coming tonight, and a warm welcome. Come back to our church. So now let's stand up and listen to this combination of Israel's national anthem and it's a beautiful country and.
Vater